It's there's many people in different locations, so good evening, good morning, whatever. But it's very nice to see you each week on Wednesday at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. And it's You Change the World, and I have today the very great pleasure to introduce you to Jennifer Safian, who is a mediator. And thank you for coming, and thank you for joining today.
Thank you, André, for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here,
Thank
and
you.
I'm happy to talk about mediation and all that we can share together.
Okay, that's great. I'm looking forward to that, and it's an exciting topic. So, I would like to first also always a few seconds of housekeeping to ask people to subscribe on YouTube for those who are on YouTube. But please, you can also see the recording of this live event on YouTube, on Facebook, on other social media, and on podcast. And you know where to find it. And if you need any information, you can always go on the website andrepalitzer.com. You have also the possibility of chatting with us, but we're not responding to you, but you can always send a message. So do not hesitate to do so. And we'll see your messages on the right side of the screen. And that's all I can say. And we are here every Wednesday, hopefully next Wednesday and the following Wednesday. And recordings are available. And your subscription to YouTube is really giving us not only a huge boost and encouragement, but it gives us also means to do better and better contents each time we develop content. So please subscribe. Okay, I think I made my message. So Jennifer, I know that you are located in New York City and that you've been
Okay.
practicing mediation for a long time. Can you say a little bit more about what's specific about you in that profession of mediator?
So I came to this world of mediation about 23 years ago. Um, I experienced a divorce myself before that, and I thought there must be a better way. Not that mine was terribly controversial, but we did not benefit from mediation. And as I started exploring the world of conflict resolution, I discovered that there were mediators who work with families and couples going through divorce and separations and all sorts of family crisis. And I thought this could be an area where I could be a resource and help to these families. So I've been doing this in Manhattan. Now, of course, there's a lot of mediations through Zoom. I work in all of New York State through Zoom and in person in Manhattan. And I also mediate with a lot of international families as I am trilingual. I speak French and Spanish. So I'm able to service couples who are expats or who rather speak in their own language. When people are in crisis, they often want to speak their own language, even though they may speak English well, because that's what they do in their job.
Mhm.
But for their personal issues, they prefer to speak their own language and to speak to someone who understands their culture.
Right, right. So now, in the role of the mediators, just for those who are not familiar with that uh, activity, can you just a little bit clarify to everybody what the role of mediator is?
So a mediator is a neutral person who's there for both parties. We don't take sides. We are there to support both parties and to guide them through their conversations as they make their own decisions. We don't tell them what to do. We don't force decisions upon them. The parties are the ones who make the decisions, but we're there to support them, guide them. If they get stuck, we help them, generate some options of different approaches to their problems. But in the end, they're in charge of their lives and they make their decisions. The beauty of mediation in the case of divorce is that rather than hiring litigious attorneys and going to war,
Yeah,
they can, work through their issues through a mediator. They always have separate attorneys who can advise them on the side and review the agreements before they sign them. I always recommend that they do that.
yes.
But they make their own decisions for their family. And that's, of course,
Yeah,
very empowering and also helps them continue the communication between them.
right. Well, the good sign when they come to you is that they are volunteering to, in fact, discuss their case and have you in the middle, but they are there by choice.
By choice. And people say to me, what is your rate of success? And the first answer that I give them is not to evade their question, but if you both have goodwill and you both want to come to resolution, you will find a solution. If one of you is holding back, it might not work out. But if you both come to the table and you want to
Yeah.
come to the end of this process, you will succeed.
Okay. So in a short period of time, like we have, it's difficult to go and dig in too deeply to that. But I'm
Right.
sure that everybody understands that neutral role, non-biased role, and what differentiates you as a mediator to other type of in-between person is that, for example, an arbitrator has a kind of authority, he can make a decision for the two conflicting parties. You cannot make any decision. All you
I
can
do not.
do is
I,
help clarifying. And that's why I'm fascinating as a coach to be also a mediator, because bringing coaching to mediation or mediation to coaching is that what we in fact have to face in our day and age, and in especially 2023, is that there is a lot of friction, a lot of tension.
there,
People are nervous, people are feeling uncertain, and uncertainty, is removing confidence from them. And when it is the case, right, conflict is
right.
sometimes higher.
Absolutely. Actually, with COVID, the level of conflict was much higher. I don't say there were more conflicts, but the levels were much higher.
Well, I think there were more because look, people to be confined in the same space for such a long time start to discover they might not get along very well.
True. That's true.
Well, I have a personal question to you, and maybe embarrassing, and I apologize in advance. But there's a lot of mediators I have noticed, I'm still new to this profession, that are divorced, that were divorced, are divorced themselves. So if they came to that with a very good reason, a good cause, because they want to contribute, they want to help. Nevertheless, they've been through the pain and sometimes very, very big pains and complicated cases.
Mhm.
So doesn't it make them a little bit biased if it's a wife who divorced a husband to take already the side of the wife?
It never occurred to me.
Ah.
First of all, my divorce was a long time ago, and after everything was over and done, my ex-husband and I remained very close,
Right.
raised our children
Oh,
together, and
no.
we had a good relationship. Um, it never occurred to me to be on the side of the wife because I went through a divorce.
Right.
So
But in
maybe
your
for some people,
subconscious, maybe a little bit, no? I mean, I'm just trying to
no,
ask.
I understand your question, but it's the first time I've been asked, and honestly, I,
I never try. I was thinking twice before asking, but I'm so curious about that
no,
very thing.
I'm glad you asked, but
Right. So
I'm
that's you see,
trying to dig deep in myself, and no, I don't think I will take the side of the wife necessarily.
okay, okay. Well,
Actually, I don't take any sides.
right.
Because something, when people explain things to you and they're in their conflict, they're both right. It doesn't mean one is wrong, one is right. They each have their own vision of what they think is right. And we have to become more accepting that they both hold some kind of truth.
Yes.
And who am I to say that person is wrong or right? Sometimes people don't always explain why they're getting divorced. They don't always explain why they're here.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and I don't ask. It's up to
Okay,
them. If they want to talk about it, fine. If they don't, that's fine.
okay, okay. No, so this is good for people who need mediation to make their choices and understand that we are all human beings. So the
Right?
intention here, professionally, is to come to that table, negotiation table, and when you're the mediator, you're completely unbiased, you're completely neutral, and you want to bring those people to come to an agreement, and that's not always easy. Divorce, I think, it must be. I don't know for other cases of conflict, but divorce must be probably the worst case of dispute. There's children, it's an emotional situation. It's been so usually a long time between the two parties that they know each other or don't know each other, or never, in fact, got to know each other very well. I don't know. But what it is that it's very emotional. Very, sometimes we call it high stake conflict when they are really yelling in front of you. That's the thing that I hesitated when I choose to be a mediator. My hesitation was that: am I going to be able to handle the anger or sometimes the intensity of the conflict? What about you?
You cannot take you can't take it home with you.
Right, right.
It's their conflict. You have to help them. Sometimes they do lose their temper, and then you have to help them bring the emotions down. Maybe take a break, take a sip of water, take a walk around the room. But you can't take the conflict in. It's not your conflict. So
Right. That's a good
our
answer.
role here is to really help them communicate. And sometimes if they're getting too heated, I'm going to say, okay, we're going to stop for a few minutes, take a deep breath. We can stop and come back tomorrow, or we can continue. But right now, you're not hearing each other, and no progress can be made.
Very
So,
good.
and when they have children, I say, what would your children think if they were seeing you like this? What do you think they would think?
Yes.
And they suddenly stop when they realize that they can't continue like that because their children would not be happy.
Hmm. Wow. Family mediation is in fact more than divorce, can be much more than that. It could be children that
Yeah,
are difficult, or we need to mediate between children and parents sometimes.
I
So,
have done that sometimes with
yes, yes.
adult children and parents.
Yeah, the scope is huge. The scope of things is huge, and then you go one step further into the business mediation, which I also do sometimes. It's not so different to take two partners in a business that want to separate, right? And then it's all about money, especially, or shares and things like that. But it can be very wild as well.
Sure.
So that allows us now to get to the second part, I think, of our discussion, which I think is the most important one, because that's what justifies the title of this live event called You Change the World. I think that if there is people who change the world, for sure, mediators do. Judges in courts, in fact, are now turning into mediators. First of all, it gets that out of their plate.
Right.
Secondly, they also want this to be resolved even before it comes to court.
That's right.
So that's a beautiful thing. But that's also, I think, because it impacts people positively. There is something about your job and about this kind of neutral jobs when there is an in between. Even someone helps negotiation. It's impacting people so much, right? It changed
Right.
their lives. What do you have to say about that?
I have an example of a couple I worked with recently. They came to me, they were recommended by a former client. They had three children. They were very, very, very anxious when they came into my office. They came in person and they were really so anxious and so upset with each other. And they said, we don't know if we're going to be able to do this. We're just too angry. We can't talk to each other. We can't communicate. But little by little, I got them to start listening to each other, to start, taking a deep breath and hold on a second. Let's see what your spouse has to say. Then let's see what you have to say. And little by little, they made these decisions and they came to a full resolution. It took a few months. They came a few times. And they themselves were so almost taken by surprise that they got from where they came in to where they ended up with an agreement that they both were comfortable with, that they think they can move forward with. It was quite amazing to see the transformation in them. And honestly, it makes me feel good that I can help people go from one place to another and realize themselves. And they sent me the really nice note after the mediation. I think they were taken by surprise. And so if we can have this impact on other people in a grander scale, I'm thrilled. I'm
Well, I think the magnitude of the change is if it impacts also the children in a good way.
Yes.
Such a, I think divorce is a total pure destruction of a family unit, right? That's what divorce is. It's an atomic, it's a nuclear explosion.
Well, yeah, so we can call it a reorganization of the family.
Well, that's pragmatic. That's the New York style again. Well,
Right.
no, but it's true. It's true. I just you know I just memorize also stories and things that I saw and how things could be transformed, as you say. But sometimes it doesn't really resolve. Sometimes it doesn't settle,
That is true.
and that's unfortunately, but that's the chance we all taking here. Everybody takes a chance. That's the beautiful thing about it, and it's communication too. So I wanted to also bring this aspect of: have you had any time an opportunity, in fact, to bring the parties together back?
back to going back to their lives as married
as
couple.
married couples.
It's happened a couple of times. They come to mediation, they start the process. I remember one case, the third session, they came in and they said, "We came to tell you that we're going to get back together because we realized as we were talking and working with you that this separation isn't going to work for us and we still have a lot to do together.
Right.
And so we're coming to tell you that we're going to stop and we're going to go back together," which was wonderful. And I said to them, "Oh, it's wonderful. I wish you all the best." And they said, "If it doesn't work out, we'll come back." Well, I never saw them. So I'm hoping that they're doing well. It doesn't mean all the problems are going to go away. No.
No, no.
I mean, even people who are happily married, they go through phases where things are difficult. They have to work through things. They have to be, open and accepting of the other person's maybe weaknesses, their own weaknesses,
Right.
but they learn how to work together.
So that's a beautiful thing. I mean, I see the celebration with champagne and a big dance when this happens. It's incredible. Again, if there's children, can you imagine? It's
Yeah,
like the nightmare fades away. It's incredible. So
right,
meditation can do that too, because there is more clarity, and they realize that yeah, if it's only that we have between the two of us, we can probably work it out. So that's a beautiful thing. But it's very rare, unfortunately.
right.
So maybe now I would like to ask you, since you do this mediation profession, what does it do to you personally? Do you see a difference between what you were doing before?
Yes, it actually has changed me in some ways. I've become much less judgmental.
Right.
I realize that each person is entitled to their own, view of things. That you never know what happens behind the closed doors. You never know what you have to accept that we each have our own view of things, and so there's much more tolerance and acceptance of people who out there we think, oh, they're bad or they're this or they're that. Well, maybe they're not. Maybe there's something in them that is good, and there probably is. And I think that I've changed in that way to become more open and more accepting of people, even those that I might have thought originally that they were maybe not such good people.
Yes.
That we all have something in us which is human and good and is wonderful. And that's, I think, what it's done for me. It's made me more open to people and very accepting of people.
Okay. Now, what is really the most complex part of this? Is it the part where the disagreements are listed and assessed, and then you see for yourself, measure a little bit how much the gap is between the two? Or is it also all the aspect of financial? Um, there's a lot of things you do with finance. You need to help the couple, right,
Yeah,
to split things, to count, or
yeah,
sometimes the wives, and I did notice that so many wives uh, do never participated so much into the financial state of the family, and need to
right.
learn a lot during the process as well. So what about that? What is most complicated in this
As
process?
well, what's most complicated is the finance is not so complicated. They can have a lot of assets, it can have a lot of different kinds of assets, but I do a lot of basic financial, things, but we can always bring in a financial expert to help
Right.
look at tax consequences, what's going to happen if you divide this asset or that asset, or to educate the person who needs help. That is not so difficult. What's difficult is when they get stuck on, say, a financial issue, but what's the underlying reason? Sometimes it's not the financial that's the issue. It looks like it's the financial, but it's really some emotional issue
Okay.
that's holding them back and that's making them upset and that's making them stumble on what looks like the financial, but it's not. And so in mediation, we work with people and try and go deeper underneath and see what is the reason that they want this or don't want this. Because if they understand themselves and what's underneath, they can resolve the issue in a better way.
Hmm.
So
That's
I
good.
wouldn't say it's more the children or more the money. It's really what the emotions that are below
Right.
are driving them. What are they driving them?
I mean, from one divorce to another, things are very different, but there is still the same, usually, structure of conversations between the assets, between the also with childcare and who is
Yeah.
going to pick them up at school and bring them back and this and that at what time, which days of the week. It's a lot of work of
That is
doing that.
work, but it's I don't find that difficult. What's difficult, you see two parents, they each are realizing they're gonna see much less of their children.
Right.
And that is a heartbreak for me. It's like, okay, now they're gonna be living separately,
Yes.
and instead of having their children every night when they come home, they're only gonna see them maybe half the nights of the week. And that for me is that I find is very difficult.
Well, and for the children to go
For
by
the
one
children,
parent and another and dance between the two, it's not.
for the children, for the parents. Those parts for me, creating a schedule. I've helped people done millions of different schedules, and
Yes.
some schedules, I've international families where once person goes back to France with the children. The wife sometimes goes back. She
Yes.
came with her husband because he works for a financial institution, and she says, "I came for you now that you don't want me in your life anymore. I want to go home. I want to be next to my family." And so they do these transatlantic um, agreements. Those are difficult too.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, wow. Must be very heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Yes. So you see, divorce again on the mediation topic is very delicate. It's very sensitive, very emotional. And then any other dispute, bringing a mediator in the between will facilitate. You're facilitating, in fact, the conversation and communication and clarity. In fact, there is a very simple thing I have noticed from one mediation to the next is to look at both and say, how are you listening to each other? Are you ready to listen to the other side's point of view? Right? That's not easy.
no, so probably what you do, like I do, is that we have to reframe what each person says
Yes.
so that
And coaching, it's the same.
because because they might not hear it properly from the voice of the person that they're getting divorced from. But if we reframe what they say and re say it in our own words to the other party, maybe they can hear it a little bit better. And that's a big role in mediation, right? For you as
Very
well. Sure.
huge. Yes, yes. Incredible. And again, coach, in situations of daily situations when there is difficult conversations and conflicts, there's another part I want to mention here, which is not in mediation but in coaching a lot. And that's maybe an opportunity I take for a second
Sure.
is how much people have to be intentional in what the outcome they want to have, if it's a positive one. So you want something and you know that the other party will not agree, don't be obstinate, don't be stubborn and push it through like this because it's not going to work. How can you come in the middle? That's negotiation. But the thing is also intentionally say, I have empathy for this person. I understand that this person has his or her own opinion. And in a conflict, they've been with themselves alone, thinking and thinking and thinking. What's amazing is that it's never been about being right or wrong. I learned that, especially here in the US. Personally, I mean, as we are both French originally, so I learned a lot in the US that it's not about being right or wrong.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's sometimes about a lawyer, an attorney who wants to win a
Right.
case. And here in this mediation table, the winning aspect disappears. It's no question about that. And that's why when we mention that, it's that people walk away from the mediation when it works. They sign, I think, a memorandum of understanding,
Right.
which is in fact binding, I think, in the state of New York. But as we are having people all over the world here watching, mostly New York, but a lot of people around the country, state by state, things are different, laws are different, especially
Yes.
divorce. And in countries, in some countries, mediation is very, very, very unusual and almost not used at all. So we encourage everybody to use mediation. We encourage everybody to have the humility and the wisdom to say to themselves, I'm not going to come to an agreement in this direct dialogue with this person. I need that third party in between.
Right.
And then maybe give us, respectively, a chance to come to an agreement. And that's what I wanted to say. They're going to work away from you, not necessarily having everything they wanted initially, but they will not feel that they lost anything,
Right.
right?
Right, right. I want to add something, Andre, is it because some people wonder if they're mediation, they're not going to be protected by the law, you
Right.
know? So as mediators, we need to be informed on what the laws are in New York. I tell my clients, I'm going to give you legal information. I'm going to explain to you what the law says in New York. I'm not going to give legal advice. That you can get from separate attorneys. But I'm going to explain to you, what does it mean in New York State when you talk about division of assets and an equitable distribution? How does that work?
Right.
So I'm going to explain that. What does it mean to have sole custody or joint custody? I have to explain all of that so that they have information.
Yes.
And people like to have that as well.
Right. Right. That's information. Yes. Okay, good. All right. So changing people's life, impacting people's life to get them to agree, to come to understand, to listen to the other's point of view, all of this can apply to so many other things. And again, in the corporate world, in organizations, in the workplace, in families, in every setting, even with friends, we can always find a common ground and an opportunity to agree and to be on the same wavelength. And that's what I think the impact of mediation has and can change people's lives and can change the world, right? As I always have to close a half hour on this concept of changing the world.
Of course.
And again, in these days, it's important that people have a mindset to be positive, right? To come out with a positive outcome. I know it's the happy end of an American movie, but it's the dream of everyone. But nevertheless, it's possible, and that's when we give the chance and create the space for people to trust each other. And if they don't, to
That's
give
right.
at least a chance, right?
Exactly.
Yes. Any other things you wanted to maybe add? We have another 1 minute or two.
Do you know the story of the orange? Both
No.
parties want this one. There's one orange left in the division of the assets, one orange. They
Yes.
want the orange.
Right.
They're fighting about the orange. And so the mediator says to one person, well, why do you want the orange? He said, well, I want the rind because I bake and I use the rind to bake. And the other person says, well, I want the flesh because I like to eat the orange. So one person is going to take the flesh and one person is going to take the rind.
Yes.
And this is how they divided up the orange. So if you go underneath and you understand the interest of each party and why they each wanted this orange, they found a
Beautiful.
solution.
That's a beautiful analogy. I'm sure everybody can apply this analogy to anything that they go through right now.
That's right.
All right. Listen, Jennifer, I really appreciate you came and you joined us. It's really nice of you. It's your
Thank you,
time.
Andre.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so much. And if people are interested to know more, Jennifer, you know where to find me. Send me an email. I will connect you with her. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you for having me. Bye-bye.
my greatest pleasure. Everybody, bye
Bye.
and see you next week, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye bye.